All right, welcome back to the Elias Macko Show. True story. The reason we're doing this next segment is I saw a tweet. It did make me laugh, but it spoke to me because of all the different things, depending on the year, on what we see when it comes to health advice and nutrition, particularly when it comes to cooking oils, other things we use in our food. So here's the tweet that I saw, okay? And it just sums up 2025 very nicely. And it was this: beef tallow is just right-wing coconut oil. And again, takes me through the years where I'm on social media and everyone's like, you got to use coconut oil. You got to put coconut oil in everything. And now I open up Twitter and it seems like I've got to be cooking everything in beef tallow. And I just don't know what to do. On top of that, we've seen all of this stuff on social media targeting seed oils, right? Canola, soybeans, sunflower oils. So much stuff on social media that say it's unhealthy. There's some new research that says you replace butter with these seed oils, it's good for you. And I'm just trying to figure out what the heck I should put in my salad dressings and what I should cook my food in. Let's go to Dr. Christopher Labos, cardiologist, degree in epidemiology, a regular contributor on CJAD. You can catch him on Weekends with Joanne Vrakas. Dr. Labos, welcome back to the show.
Hello.
So what do you say for beef tallow? Is it right-wing coconut oil?
No, it really is. I mean, I know that tweet was supposed to be a joke, but it really is. And what's happened is that a lot of people will self-identify with particular foods. So, avocado toast or whatever. It's like things that tend to sort of identify you as part of a particular demographic. Beef tallow has become the demographic of the people who follow RFK Jr., part of this whole MAHA movement of let's eat more meat. And there are literally people writing op-eds in the New York Times saying we should eat more meat, which is, of course, directly contradicting all the scientific research that exists. But part and parcel of that has been, let's get away from the plant-based stuff, i.e. margarine, and actually cook with butter and beef tallow and all this sort of stuff. And again, it's part of this movement of meat is good for you. We're strong, we're hardy, we're healthy. We're going to make America healthy again by eating the stuff that we ate back in the 50s when, frankly, we actually weren't all that healthy. But it's sort of the allure of the past that is sort of giving people this health halo.
And here's the other thing, which I kind of sort of get, because growing up, right, I grew up in the era where butter was out, margarine was in, right, big sea change. And nobody got healthier. I mean, we made that switch and it didn't seem it seemed like everyone got less healthy. So you add those together and be like, oh, maybe there's a relation. I know science doesn't work like that. So, yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I think a lot of people are still reacting to conversations that were happening in the 80s and 90s. And you're right. In the 1980s, there was a big push to get away from butter. And there were two big reasons for it. One of them was the health thing. We were trying to cut out animal fats with the assumption that it would make people healthier, particularly with cardiovascular disease. The reality is actually a lot more complex, and the switch from butter to margarine didn't really accomplish much because, now we know that most cholesterol is frankly genetic in origin, and most of the cholesterol you eat doesn't actually come from butter and eggs. It actually comes from red meat. So that's a whole complex issue. But the other reason to create margarine was an economic one. It's much cheaper to grow corn than it is to raise cattle. That's just the economic reality of it. And so there was this push to do that. What ended up being the big fly in the ointment with margarine was trans fats, because the process of hydrogenating margarine to make it a solid that you could cook with ended up producing trans fats. And it took about a decade for trans fats to get fully removed from our food supply. And we've done that. So the whole, back and forth between butter and margarine has largely settled into, an inconsequential thing now, because now it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things whether you take butter or margarine, but a lot of people are still re-arguing and re-litigating this debate based on, the whole issue of trans fats. And I think that's part of where this whole let's get back to butter is coming from. People are like, but margarine is unhealthy for you. Well, no, it isn't. It was because of the trans fats, but your margarine doesn't contain trans fats anymore. Those were removed quite a few years ago by legislation.
So what do you say on this? I saw this study that said, okay, seed oils, replace butter with seed oils. There's actually, it'll lead to good health outcomes. What do you say to that? And are you making any switches in your diet because of it?
No, because just last week there was another study saying that that it said the exact opposite of that vegetable-based sources of oils were actually better for you.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, I wrote a whole book about why health headlines are contradictory. It's because we just don't have the granularity of the data.
Mm-hmm.
For big trends, we know that eating a lot of red meat is bad for you and that we should eat more plants as a rule. That's pretty clear. We know that trans fats are bad for you. We know that eating a lot of fruits and vegetables is good for you. So we know that a Mediterranean-style diet, good for you overall. But when you start getting into these very, very detailed things, very much in the weeds, canola oil versus coconut oil versus olive oil, the granularity of data doesn't exist because it's so hard to measure what people eat because most of us don't know what we're eating. Most of us are eating food prepared for us by somebody else, whether it be a restaurant or other members of our family or takeout or what have you. So it's almost impossible to measure this stuff accurately, and hyper-obsessing about these details is frankly pointless. We know what you have to do to be healthier. We have to all eat less because we all eat too much in North America. And as a general rule, move away from meat more towards fruits and vegetables. Try to substitute out the meat for fish. And that's really the most important thing you need to do. Hyper-focusing on whether it's butter or margarine or whether it's olive oil or canola oil doesn't really matter. I always eat olive oil, but that's for patriotic reasons more than anything else.
I was just going to say, you're a Greek, I'm a Greek. We have found the right way, the true way on oils. Just use olive oil.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're with Dr. Christopher Labos here. You're a cardiologist. Are you telling anyone to change anything? As long as everything's in moderation when it comes to what's in their cupboard and on their counter when they're cooking or when they're buttering their toast, are you advising anyone to change things up, or it's just, keep with the moderation, don't overdo it?
Yeah, it's basically that. Here's the thing. First of all, dietary change is hard. Getting people to change their diet is hard. So if you're going to start going down that road, you really want to hyper-focus on the things that are really, really important. Cardiovascularly, the one thing that's really important, well, two things. The number one is salt. And when I start talking to people about salt, because salt does increase your blood pressure, it's actually really bad if you have heart failure because it makes you retain water and that can put you into pulmonary edema and land you in hospital. So salt is actually pretty bad. It has no real redeeming value in any way. All food has some salt in it, and so you need some salt, but that's naturally present in your food. The problem is the salt that is added to our food, and that gets to pre-processed foods or the ultra-processed foods, if you've heard that term before, because those have high amounts of salt in it. And so what I often tell people is if you want to be healthier, the single most important thing you can do is not eat pre-processed food. Eat food that you cook yourself, because you will invariably, even if you add salt to your food, as most people do during cooking, you will never add as much as a food production facility that is preparing and giving you pre-packaged food. Uh-huh. And so that's the real big push that I give to people. And legislatively, what's happening in both Canada and the U.S. is trying to remove salt from food. And you've already seen the beginnings of that with soup labels saying 15% less sodium, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the real big food intervention we need to be focusing on, is getting the sodium out of our food. And the government is going to have to get it out of like canned soups and pre-prepared stuff. But you as an individual, you need to eat less salt. And the best way to do that is not eat pre-prepared food, because that's where most of our salt actually comes from.
I have a text message from a listener saying that they heard olive oil is great for your arteries and cholesterol. Is there any truth to that?
So, sort of. What they're getting at is this whole idea that olive oil in particular has a lot more polyunsaturated fats relative to something like corn oil, which is why people say olive oil is healthier than corn oil. And that is true to an extent. But if you're going to use that olive oil to make French fries, you're not really advancing your health in any significant way. So is olive oil better for you? Yes, probably by a very, very marginal degree. But when you look if you zoom out to the population level, what is the biggest issue that we're facing is we're eating a lot of pre-processed foods, and getting that out of the diet is going to be the most significant public health challenge. Or alternatively, getting a lot of the unhealthy stuff out of that food, because we did it with trans fats. Like, that was actually a big public health success. Now we just have to repeat it with salt and secondarily with sugar, getting a lot of the sugar out of a lot of the junk food that we eat because there's just a lot of sugar in it.
That's the one thing I would need to cut in my diet is sugar. I have too much sugar. Let me just wrap up with this, Dr. Labos. You're going to go eat some fast food at one of them chains, and one is now frying the fries in beef tallow. The other one has those seed oils. Does it matter?
In the grand scheme of things, no. Don't eat at a fast food outlet because they're just adding all the salt and sugar to it. The reason why food tastes good at these places is because they load it with all the stuff that tastes good but is actually bad for you because they're not going to take care of you when you get sick 10 years down the road. So this whole issue that's happening in the U.S. of people bringing their own beef tallow to restaurants and saying, cook my meal with this, is like totally, absolutely absurd. It's shocking to me, the stuff that people do because they see it on social media.
Dr. Labos, keep it real. We'll catch you Sunday at 7:20 on Weekends with Joanne Vrakas. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Take care.